Chapter 27: The Global Crisis from 1921 to 1941. The Diplomacy of the New Era. So America is not part of the League of Nations. They have treaties to provide benefits, but they do not have any of their own responsibilities. Charles Hughes searches for safeguards against future wars, which leads to the Washington Conference of 1921, which resulted in a reduction of naval armaments for America, Britain, and Japan, known as the Five-Power Pact. The New Era effort was to protect peace. The Kellogg-Briand Pact outlawed war as an instrument of national policy. However, there is no way to enforce this. There are efforts to maintain American overseas trade. Loans are to be repaid by Allied powers and reparations to be paid by Germany. Charles G. Dawes established circular loans. American money lent to Germany, who pays to France and England, who pay debts to the U.S. The U.S. banks expand in Europe, which become too dependent on unstable European economies. The same thing happens in Latin America. The financial crisis as well as nationalism threaten weak international agreements. Hoover does not intervene in Latin America, and they default on their debt to the U.S. Crisis in Asia. Regarding the disputed territory Manchuria, Japan invades this part of China. American Henry Stimson's efforts do no good, and militarist Japan attacks further into China. So there's a debate. Should we have more internationalism in relations with other countries, or nationalism and isolationism? So, isolationism and internationalism. Hoover wanted to enforce the gold standard, and FDR allows the gold standard to fall to compete in world markets. Stop the circular system of debt. And the reciprocal trade agreement is an American reduction of taxes if the same is done by other nations. There were hopes of expanding foreign trade and efforts for better relations with Russia. However, there is still mistrust. The Good Neighbor policy provides a transition from military force to economic influence in Latin America. The arms or weapon control attempts fail, and most Americans support isolationism rather than intervention. FDR shares some isolationist views, but still wanted some role in maintaining peace. The Neutrality Acts of 35, 36, and 37. Americans travel on ships of warring nations at their own risk, and there's no protection of neutral rights. The cash and carry policy, in which warring nations could only produce non-military goods from the U.S., and they could not do it with loans, and they had to carry the goods back with their own ships. Mussolini attacks Ethiopia, Mussolini attacks Ethiopia, and Italy, who is in charge. Mussolini is in charge of Italy, and Italy is allies with Nazi Germany, and they are known as the Axis powers. However, the U.S. government does not assist in the Spanish Civil War. FDR thought Japanese aggression against China should be punished. They should be quarantined to prevent war contagion from spreading. There's a hostile public response to what FDR did. Hitler is determined to expand German power, so there's a union with Austria and the proposition of Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia is prepared to fight, but Western nations want to prevent war. So during the Munich Conference, the French and the British accept the German demands for Czechoslovakia if Germany does not expand further. This is the policy known as appeasement. However, Hitler ignores this agreement and threatens to invade Poland. So Britain and France will assist Poland. In Russia, Stalin signs a non-aggression pact with Hitler, and Hitler stages a border incident with Poland in order to invade. So Britain and France declare war on Germany. From neutrality to intervention. FDR begins with neutrality. However, the U.S. supports Britain, France, and other allies. How much should we help them, though? Roosevelt lifts the arms embargo, and the Allies can buy weaponry under cash and carry basis. The German armies subdue Poland, and the Soviet Union invades its neighbors, but the U.S. does not do much in response. The Germans invade much of Europe. Italy joins the attack in France, and France falls. So only remnants of the British army remain. America provides armaments to England, and the public opinion shifts from Germans being no threat to the U.S. to posing a direct threat on the nation. There are internal preparations for war. The Burke-Wadsworth Act institutes a peacetime military draft. And there's a debate between the Fight for Freedom Committee and the America First Committee. FDR runs for a third term in 1940 versus Republican candidate Wendell Willkie. Both candidates take the stance to stay out of war but help the Allies. Willkie evokes enthusiasm, but FDR wins decisively. FDR expands aid to Allies with the Lend-Lease system to lend or lease armaments to any nation vital to the defense of the U.S. And this allows the U.S. to help the Allies when they can no longer pay cash. Hemispheric defense means escorting merchant ships in the West Atlantic to transport weaponry. Germany attacks the Soviet Union, breaking the Nazi-Soviet pact, and the Soviets are now U.S. allies. The Nazi submarines have a campaign against U.S. ships, so the U.S. launches a naval war against Germany. So Britain and the U.S. have a secret meeting and form the Atlantic Charter, which is a statement of war aims: destroy Nazi tyranny. The Tripartite Pact between Germany, Italy, and the Japanese form them as allies. However, the Pacific is largely a separate conflict from the European theater. The American animosity towards Japanese policies leads to a trade embargo which limits Japan's access to necessary supplies. Within the Japanese government, the war party is in control. There are negotiations, but both Japan and the U.S. are unwilling to compromise. Japanese messages are decoded, and war was imminent. However, there was an unknown plan of attack. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, a direct attack on the U.S. So this united the American people in fervent commitment to the war, and Congress issues a declaration of war. World War II will be discussed next.